Hi there everyone, welcome back to Infinity Drones. Today we take a look at how to prevent your drone from updating automatically, specifically the firmware, as well as doing the mod on the Mavic Air 2 to remove the no-fly zones as well as the altitude limits. Now, why would you want to prevent your drone from updating? Well, just go into Google, type in DJI firmware problems, and you'll see why. In my opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and only update if you really need to. In this case, DJI has released a version of the firmware that prevents the new Dronehacks mod from removing the altitude limits and the no-fly zones. If you've updated, you would lose that ability. In this case, we're just going to log into Dronehacks and we can take a look at what mods are available. As you can see, I'm going to register a brand new license to the current drone that I've got, and it's very simple. You just need to purchase a Dronehacks license on their site. It gets affiliated with your account. When you log in, it will automatically check. Now, since the drone is already being connected, it will automatically open this page where I can check or implement any of the mods that I want. But let's just go to the main page quickly and check the firmware that I'm currently on. I do not want to be on the latest firmware. I want to be on 0610. Now remember, if you've done the mod and your drone updates the firmware, you're effectively going to lose the mod. So what we want to do is we want to go into the Fly app, click on the Go Fly option, go to the three dots on the top right, and then check your current firmware. Now, if you're not sure how to do this, you can do it in the Dronehacks app or you can do it right here. Now, I'm checking for new firmware and I don't have a new firmware because it does seem like DJI recalled the latest firmware that they dropped out. But we want to prevent this from ever happening again. So just go back to the Fly app, tap on your profile, and then scroll down to settings. Once you're on that page, you can say firmware auto download. You can enable or disable it. In my case, I would always want to disable it so it doesn't automatically download, because then the app can technically force you to upgrade instead where you have the option to cancel it. So in this case, I'm going to leave that off. I can also check for firmware and you'll see that there's no firmware update available. But how can you make this permanent so that it does not give you any issues in the future? You can scroll down to privacy and you can enable or disable local mode. Now, when you're in local mode, you need to pay attention because you're not going to be able to see or use the map anymore, and your Find My Drone option obviously is not going to work because you're not uploading your flight data to the DJI account anymore. Now, if you don't want to do this, you do not need to enable this. You can just leave your drone offline so it does not connect to the internet at all. But if you are going to connect to the internet, I would recommend using local mode so that you do not accidentally update something on your DJI Fly app. Once you've done whatever you need to do on the internet, you can always just come back and disconnect from the internet and enable local mode again. As you can see, the DJI Fly app requests you to manually close it and reopen it again to enable local mode. But since local mode is now enabled, it cannot check for map information, cannot check for Find My Drone options, and obviously it cannot automatically update as well. This is a great option for those of you guys that do not want to get tracked by DJI, or if you'd like to update something on your drone, you enable something on your tablet or your device to update, and you make sure that your DJI and your software does not get updated in the background. Now, once the app is fully rebooted, you can just click on Go Fly, and we're just going to do a quick test to make sure that local mode is enabled. All you need to do, click on Go Fly, the three dots on the top right, then go to the About section, and then tap on your Check for Firmware Update. If you see the message that you cannot do it because you're in local mode, then you know everything is fine. All you can do now is you can close it out. You can go back to the Dronehacks application, connect your drone, and then wait for it to be detected by the application. Once it's done, you're going to see your options that you can do. In this case, you're going to see FCC mode's always enabled, but it's not enabled on the drone. It's just the default setting. So click Apply to apply FCC mode. Remember, it does not mean that FCC was enabled on your drone. It's just the default setting. It cannot read it from the drone. So when you click Apply, it's going to send the mod to the drone and start to apply the FCC mod to your Mavic Air. This can also be done on your Mini 2 as well. And you'll notice that the drone is going to start restarting quite a few times. In total, I think there were 6 restarts in this process. You can just see on the screen, put some numbers on there every time it restarts. Now, this is mainly to make sure the mod processes correctly. So don't worry, you can just leave it. There's nothing that you need to do from your end. You literally just need to leave the drone connected, and Dronehacks will do everything for you. In my case, I've gone and just closed the pop-up for the SD card and the onboard storage because it just irritates me, but the mod still continues in the background. I've not done anything. So once the mod is applied, after the 6th time, then you will have FCC mode enabled, and I'll show you how to check if FCC is enabled or not. Now guys, if you find any of the content that I'm making useful, please consider to click the subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. It really helps out the channel. Now, remember, the reason that we want FCC is for the extra output on your antenna. Your range will get improved, but this is not specifically to go further. It's just that if you fly behind buildings or trees, your signal strength will be better. So it's not going to hurt your drone or damage or anything like that. And you can easily just come to the Dronehacks application and then just go to regular mode again and apply it. It's quite simple. Other way to do it is to simply just upgrade or downgrade your firmware, and it'll also restore to the default settings as well. But in my opinion, I see no reason why you would not want FCC mode. It simply makes your connection better to your drone, and I would always fly in FCC mode, purely because for me the most important thing is the connection quality back to the device I'm using. Now, for those of you guys that are watching the video and you're not sure what Dronehacks is or where to get it from, I'm going to put the links in the description below. I also have a full tutorial on how to do the mod on the Mavic Air, the Mavic 2 Pro, and so forth. In this video, however, we are going to do the mod on the Air 2, the FCC mod we're currently busy with, and how to implement the no-fly zone mod. I'm also going to show you how to check in the app itself and how you can turn it on and off right after this mod. As you can see now, the final restart has happened and the FCC mod has now successfully been implemented. Dronehacks will also show you a little pop-up to tell you that it's successful, and you can also look in the log in the top of the screen to see that the mod has successfully been implemented. Now you'll notice that the pop-up also says do not update your firmware, because if you update your firmware, it will automatically restore back to default and you will lose the FCC mod as well as any other mod that you've implemented on the drone itself. Now next up, we can just quickly go into the Fly app to check that your FCC mod has successfully been installed, and it's quite easy to check. Just click on Go Fly, tap the 3 dots on the top right, then go to the transmission section. Once on the transmission tab, just scroll down to the little lines at the bottom of the screen that shows you your output of your antenna. Now on Android devices, the text 1km will be above the line, that's above the 90 dB line, and on iOS devices, the actual line will be above the 90 dB line on the left side. So basically, if the 1K line is higher than 90 dB, you're in FCC mode. Cool, so let's quickly jump back to the Dronehacks application, just connect your drone again, and then we're going to do the no-fly zone mod. Once again, Dronehacks will automatically detect your device, and it will automatically start loading the exploits available. Now, depending on your internet connection, it can take quite long, but in this case, I've sped it up. Click on the install button. There's a little warning that pops up, and you've got to agree to it. And you'll also see that once again, if you update the firmware or make any changes to the software, you can potentially lose the mod. Once again, it takes me back to the beginning of the video where I said put your phone or your device into local mode only so that you do not accidentally update your device software. If you really need to, you can just turn local mode off again and update whatever you want to do on the device or the settings, or upload your flight logs and so forth. But remember, if you've got an active internet connection and you've got the firmware updates available, then the DJI Fly app might force you to automatically update, meaning that you'll lose the no-fly zone mod as well as the FCC mod. Now, luckily, the no-fly zone mod only requires 2 restarts, and you're going to have a little pop-up that once again states if you make any changes to the firmware or the software, you could potentially lose the mod on the drone itself. So please make sure you do not update or have your device connected to the internet if you don't have local mode enabled. If you have a local mode enabled, you can be on the internet. It should be no problem. But in my opinion, I would rather be safe than sorry. Once again, the age-old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So in my opinion, only update firmware if you have an issue or if you need the latest features. Remember, if you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments below. And don't forget to click that subscribe button to be notified whenever I release a new video. Finally guys, that is all. We don't need to do anything else. You have successfully now removed the no-fly zones, put your drone into FCC mode, and all that remains is for us to go test it out. So once again, jump to your drone, your fly app, and then go to the go fly option, and we're going to go for a quick test flight. Now for this test flight, I'm just going to keep it safe and nice and low first. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my safety tab and make my altitude nice and low. So in this case, let's just select 45 meters and then see if it's enabled. Remember, we have now just run the mod. We have not changed anything else in the app. And I'm just going to take off and see if the mod is applied by default. So in this case, my return to home altitude has been detected. That's fine. Everything else is working 100% the correct way. Remember, this is not going to affect your return to home or any of those settings. It just removes the limit. This is just a certificate that basically approves your ability to fly in certain areas. As you can see, I've just passed 45 meters. I've gone up to 60 meters. There's no issues whatsoever. And if I go to the safety tab, you can see that my max altitude limit is still 45 meters, and I'm obviously well over that. And for those of you guys that are worried that for some reason the certificate will stop working while in a flight, here you'll see that it's impossible. While you are in flight, it is not possible to change it. So you can see I'm now on 30 meters. I'm just going to go down to my geo zones again. Select it, and you're going to move over to the aircraft unlocking license option, and you're going to see that the Dronehacks certificate is currently enabled. But while you're in the air, you cannot change it. It's locked. So all you can really do now is land and then make the change. So quickly going to just drop down to my driveway and then just disable this feature over there. So once again, just go back to the settings, click on Geo Unlock Zone, go to the aircraft option, and now you can see I'm able to disable this. So if you want to keep the no-fly zones enabled, maybe you're going to give the drone to someone else and you want to be safe and you don't really trust them that much, then you can always just disable the Dronehacks certificate, and then limits like the altitude limit as well as the no-fly zones will then be implemented again. So I'm just going to quickly go up again. I'm still at 45 meters as you guys can see, and I'm just going to go back up quickly past 45 meters. But in this case, you can see because I have disabled the certificate, I should not be able to pass the 45 meter limit. This is the easiest and quickest way to test if your mod has been successful. There's no need to go to the max limit and try and go past 500 meters. Once again, I'm in the air. The Dronehacks certificate has now been disabled, but because the aircraft is active, I am unable to enable the certificate again. The only way you can do it is to land and then enable the certificate again. Every time you enable the certificate, it asks you if you are going to take responsibility for the flight, and you can then enable the certificate. So in this case, it's a simple toggle, tick the two check boxes, enable it, and you're good to go. Now this is going to apply even to the built-in DJI limit. So if I go to my max altitude, which is currently 45 meters, and I take it up all the way to 500 meters, I can accept the liability, and the Dronehacks will still enable you to go higher than 500 meters. If you're ever going to do this, I would always recommend opening up the UAV forecast app or a similar app. Windy, I think, is another one. Click on the wind profile option and then just check what the winds are at a different altitude. Remember, the higher up you go, the wind might be very different and you could potentially lose your drone like that. Always, guys, fly responsibly, make sure that you obey the local laws and pay attention to anything that's around you, and if possible, always have a spotter with you. As always, I'm going to have the links to Dronehacks and everything that you require in the video description. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, please pop it in the comments below and I'll try and answer them as quickly as possible. This brings us to the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please consider subscribe. It really helps out the channel.